You are born on an island with natural food, natural parents, and so on. You suck the blood out of your mother. That's how you get the energy, and she likes to do it because you are part of her. If you get lucky, so to speak, you survive and then you ascend. That's how it's always been. Everybody understood this. If you do fail, that's most likely because the parents did not provide you with the right nutrition, because they were not strong, aka smart enough. So you will also not be, and end up as food for somebody else. If it does happen, you reincarnate. It's a circle of life. It goes on and on. This way you experience life in all of its forms. The evolution theory is just another case of a half-truth. We do go through all the stages. We used to be plants and other animals, dogs, even apes, but only spiritually. There's no evolution as such on the earth, physically. But our soul, the player of these beings, goes through them to experience life.
There are communities that are still hunter-gatherers, and the Hadza in northern Tanzania are one such population. And this is a paper published in 1962. And I was looking for, so what do the children of the Hadza hunters get fed? Because it's not cereal from Woolworths. It has to be something else. Infant feeding was rendered soft fat as from the zebra, and bone marrow, both raw and cooked, are introduced in the early months. So the child is weaned onto fat from the zebra and the bone marrow. When the infant has 2 to 4 teeth, pre-chewed meat, so the mother pre-chews the meat, she's then fed, and by the age of about 18 months, the full adult range of foods will be consumed. So they will eat the meat, but they'll also eat some of the carbohydrate sources that are available. And so then the question was, well, how healthy were these children? And the main finding were the good health of the children in general, and particularly the absence of obvious malnutrition and anemia, were probably related to the excellent infant feeding patterns based on prolonged breastfeeding and the introduction of animal protein in the second 6 months of life in the shape of bone marrow and pre-chewed meat. So that's it, and that's how we've survived for 2.5 million years or so, eating these foods. And those are the foods that both the dietary guidelines for South Africa and in our books we propose. We've been eating this food for millions of years, and if we hadn't weaned our children onto these foods, humans wouldn't exist. Infants were randomized to either pureed beef or iron-enriched infant cereals as the first complementary food, and they noticed that the mean daily zinc intake from the complementary foods for the infants in the meat group was 1.9 milligrams compared to 0.6 milligrams in the cereal group, which is approximately 25% of the average daily requirement. And then they noticed that the increase in head circumference in infants aged 7 to 12 months was marginally greater in the meat group. Zinc and protein intake was a predictor of head growth. And we're going to come back to this. That first 1,000 days are so crucial, that the child must have the nutrients it needs to develop its brain. And we're going to discuss the evidence at the end of 12 months. If you measure the child's head circumference, you can predict to some extent its future intellectual growth. And that's frightening. If our intellectual growth is determined at 12 months, and it's determined by the quality of the food that we gave the child, and particularly whether that child had enough zinc and iron and other brain-specific nutrients to develop the brain during this period of explosive brain growth. And they noticed then that as breast milk is generally a more abundant source of fat than most complementary foods, total fat intake often decreases as the contribution of breast milk to total dietary energy declines. And this raises the question, why does breast milk have so much fat in it? Why does breast milk have so much fat in it? And the answer is because the baby needs that fat to develop its brain. And once you start cutting the fat, you can expect that the brain growth will not be as good as it should be. And so again, I make the point that the neonate is different from all other ages because the need for fat to grow the brain is so enormous. And that if we don't address that, we develop generations of children who may be brain compromised.
You are a plant, and another being wants to eat you. But eventually you will evolve to be the being that wanted to eat the previous you. So now you eat yourself. Another being will want to eat who you are now, but eventually you will also evolve to be that being, and so on, until you become the highest vibrational being, aka food. Make no mistake, we are all walking food. This is all nutrition and the way for another being to ascend. We don't understand this because we are removed from nature. And after that, you move on to another plane. But not so fast. There are beings that don't want you to ascend. They want you to stay here in the circle of slavery. This is why you get fed the poison. And even if it wasn't the poison, you would still have to focus on the highest vibrational foods. Otherwise, forget it. You're reincarnating.
We view the universe as a unity. So what seems evil and what seems good, we understand to only be a perspective. But that perspective is subjective and can be changed. So there is no black or white, good or evil, in the left-hand path understanding of the universe. So therefore we do not accept the idea that there is a black magic which is supposedly evil and selfish, and a white magic which is supposedly good, benevolent, and on the side of the angels. There is, as you said, only magic. The phrases themselves come from medieval times when black was, of course, related to the devil and to Satanism, and white was seen as holy or sacred. But before Christian times, black magic came from the idea that Egypt, which used to be known as Kem, and the Egyptian word Kem means black. In other words, all magic was considered to be black magic, magic from Egypt. And this has been perverted and distorted over the centuries through Christianity, so that now people think magic is an evil thing. But magic is such a misunderstood concept that if you really practiced it, you would see that it's a neutral force, like radioactivity or electricity. One could hardly say that radioactivity is good or evil. It simply is a force that can be applied.
When we eat each other, or ourselves, we are playing with each other. Most of us won't comprehend that because we are spiritually asleep. Energy-wise, we are connected to the same source. But this plane gives us a chance to experience individuality. That's one of the reasons for it. When the enlightened ones cut a baby's head off and drink the blood, they have fun, they enjoy themselves, they laugh, because they understand that this is not real, that we are on a playground and that life is about having fun. Most people, however, live their lives the opposite way. They would absolutely take it serious because everything physical is very serious. This is so real. That's how we grow up, with these man-made rules also. That's why they became the controllers. The lower vibrational beings, they spend their whole day, sometimes 20 hours, and eat just to get to our level. And we can directly eat the fat and digest it to get to the source.
Weaning onto eggs improves infant blood DHA, an important omega-3 fatty acid with its name, and iron levels. In other studies, this more rapid brain growth after birth predicts higher intelligence. That's a terribly important study. In evolutionary terms, meat, particularly organ tissues, would provide the ideal weaning food, because biologically, children should be weaned onto a high-fat diet. They need the fat to build their brains. Carbohydrates are a non-essential nutrient. You don't need carbohydrates. You cannot build brains, you cannot build muscles, you can't build bones, you can't build anything apart from fat tissue from carbohydrates, with one or two minor exceptions, but that's as a general statement. What's happened to brain sizes since we started eating grains? So if we go back to 10,000 years ago, and this is when we first start eating grains, and these are fossils that have been discovered between 5,000 years and modern times, or modern times obviously they would be in modern humans, and you can see that the brain size in men has gone from 144 to 138, and in women from 141 to 132. So the trend is downwards.
Humans are able to eat once a day or every other day. That's a luxurious life. Most of us don't realize it. And we use our hands, not our paws or only our heads. Most animals are disabled compared to us. It's pretty typical nowadays to be around 70 years old and close to death. Making recipes all of your life, living for taste. Of course you will feel empty at the end of your so-called life. You die, and then you come back to try again and again because you didn't realize that all you had to do was follow nature. So you reincarnate. You're forever lost in the illusion. And you probably die depressed, like most of us, because that's how we live our lives. The opposite of the enlightened ones. They are high every day, as happy as you possibly could be. But I'll make a separate video on that. They go for the top of the food chain. When I talk about cannibalism, it's not as if these words change anything. It's just sounds coming out of my mouth. When you hear about something natural that occurs all the time in nature, and you get close-minded, that says something about you. You have some issues that you should work on. I have no influence. They're still gonna do it. If you don't like being aware about it, then fuck off. The only way you will ascend is if you eat raw animals. Otherwise you will come back. They want you to believe that they are Satanists or some nonsense. They absolutely represent nature. That's what they stand for. If you do fall for the trap and believe that they are something else, you're stupid, you understand? You're dumb, okay? Idiots.